Welcome in, Jake West, Caleb Tallman. This is North Georgia Shootaround presented by Team FYN Sports. We're going to be recapping and highlighting all of the basketball games around our area, from Pickens to Lumpkin, Gilmer, Fannin, Union. A lot of schools in our North Georgia coverage area. We're going to talk about their games from last Wednesday to this Wednesday. And then we'll preview the games from this Wednesday to next Wednesday. So, Caleb, if you want to start us off, go ahead. I think you might have a few highlight videos and stuff we're going to throw in there too. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, and you'll just have to be patient with me because we get most of our highlights on the Georgia side from Max Preps as we're still working to cultivate some of those relationships with coaches in Georgia. But we'll start off with a highlight we do have ready, Jake, and that is the Fannin Union girls game last Saturday. That's always a big rivalry game. And really, it looked like that the Fannin girls or the Union girls really gave Fannin a scare for a minute. And I think one of the things I talked to Tim Tao about this, in a way, Jake, those Union girls did highlight a weakness of the Fannin girls team, and that was the inability to guard the post at times. Yeah. So let's pop that highlight up and take a look, and you can tell me what you think.
Yeah, as well as a matchup between two top 10 teams in AA. So obviously it was going to be good. And I didn't get to watch it completely, but you're right. It was close for a little bit. And I mean, Ava Hunter down low for the Panthers is just a menace. You'll see her in the purple down low. She was just, I mean, you're right. Fannin had no answer for her.
Yeah, I mean, she had a big game, but she just didn't get enough help. And that's why we saw the Fannin girls still go on to win that one fairly handily. You know, I mean, that's just kind of the way the game rode out. But I think it was Courtney Davis had a real big game for Fannin as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Courtney Davis had 24 points, I believe. Just a sophomore for the Rebels. She's really good scorer. Rebels also have Becca Ledford. She had a pretty good night. Fannin's got scorers all over the place, so they do a good job playing team basketball, and obviously that got them a win against the top 10 team in AA. But right there's Ava Hunter down low. I mean, she's the centerpiece for the Panthers, and as she goes, so will the purple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things you'll see as Fannin is concerned is if they can't find an ability to guard the post well, is one, will they be able to rebound? Because that's a big. You just don't want to give a team a ton of second chances. And at the very minimum, they might have to play a style of, well, we can just outscore you because our guards shoot threes while your posts are shooting twos. And I think they're one of the few teams on the girls' side of things in our area. They probably have the talent to do that, Jake. I think that they will struggle once they get into the playoffs if they want to make another state title attempt or another run at it, as they were the runner-ups last year. They did lose some post size, though. So are they in a position where it's like, okay, we're just going to score it. We're going to press you. We're going to make it hard on you. And if we have to, we'll just outscore you. And that's not a terrible way to go about things when you have the talent that they have.
Yeah, for sure. But looking at things from the boys' side of it, Fannin boys, you mentioned it off air. I mean, no one expected them to be very good this year. No one expected them to be region contenders. But if they would play 4 quarters like they do the fourth quarter, they would be region contenders. I mean, they really turned it on in the fourth quarter, and they've got some guys, the Ethington kid, Norton kid, that are really good scorers, really good shooters, and they're a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And they've played some close games where they've lost, and we've seen them, like you said, we've seen them play so well in the fourth quarter. It's like, man, in the fourth quarter they can compete with anybody, but can they get to the fourth quarter and have it be a close game? One of the guys I really like for Fannin is that Ethington kid. You mentioned him. It's just like he's so fundamentally sound. It's just like, I mean, you saw him do the two-handed reverse a second ago. I think they're playing him a little bit more at point guard, and you see late in the game, he just went ISO a lot, Jake, and either he was scoring off the ISO or he was finding a teammate. And I think, they're hesitant to play him at point guard at times just because he's a new player. Do you really, want to put a new kid at point guard but they're allowing him time to adjust, and they're doing more of that stuff. And it seems to me that when they do those things with Eppington, their team's better for it.
Yeah, Will Jones for the Rebels also pretty good. As far as Union County is concerned, they lost that game to Fannin 60-53, I think, in overtime. But Union's got some good kids as well. Lake Hughes, he was one of our feeling it athletes of the week this week. He's very good. And the freshman guard, Jude Ellis, a name we're going to hear for the next 4 years for sure, because, I mean, I think he's averaging 20 a game. And as a freshman on varsity, that's unheard of around here.
Yeah, I'd agree hard. I think better times are to come for the Union boys, but they're already making improvements last year. Was it the girls team, or I think it was the boys team last year, Jake? They went winless, didn't they?
Yeah.
And so they're already doing better than that this year, as they're 3-7, which doesn't sound great, but hey, 3-7 is better than no wins. I mean, that's
they were 0-4. They were 0-14 last year.
And obviously they had a myriad of COVID issues, but there's a team getting back to improving, because it wasn't that long ago, Jake. They were region contenders just a few years ago, and I think they've got some region titles in their history. So obviously making improvements. I mean, we talk about this all the time, man. Unless you're one of those charter schools or private schools, or I don't know, you get lucky and a set of twins moves in that are both college level players. Especially when new coaches take over programs and such, you're not going to go from 0 to 0 in the loss column and go from bottom to top. It takes time to build things. It takes time to build a program. But it looks like over at Union, Mandy Hunter at AD and their new boys coach, I believe, is just in one of his first couple years, if not his first year. I can't remember. But they're making improvements, and the program's building in the right direction. And I think the same can be said for Fannin's boys. I think this is Coach Richardson's third year, and you've seen steady improvement. And I think one of the good signs is for both those teams, some of their losses, Jake, have been really close losses. That you give them an extra 15 points spread out through 4 or 5 games, and they may both have winning records instead of the losing records they currently carry. So they're not that far off.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Moving forward, let's talk about some of the other games we have. Let's go over. I know we're going to jump around back and forth, up and down, but let's talk about Lumpkin a little bit, Jake. And I know they played your Bulldogs last Saturday, but before we get to that one, I wanted to show from Max Preps, we have a Lumpkin Dawson girls highlight, and it kind of will just give you an idea of how good those Lumpkin girls are. Go ahead and share about them. I know we talked about it on our North Carolina show too, but I know you came away pretty impressed watching the Lumpkin girls.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've got sophomore Avery Jones, one of their top scorers. They got a big win last night, 67-27 over Gilmer, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But they're 8-1 right now. And they've got good athletes all over the place. I mean, they've got Avery Jones, who we mentioned, Lexi Pierce, Mary Molinex, just really, really good athletes and scorers. So that's going to help them along down the stretch once these younger girls get some experience under their feet. I mean, they don't have one senior on this basketball team, Caleb, which is kind of scary. They're the number 1 team in 3A in girls in Georgia, and I don't think they have one senior on that team. So, I mean, it's really it's amazing what they've been able to do as of late. I mean, I think they were a Final Four team last year, and they're definitely the favorites to win state this year with their one loss coming to Buford in a time where they were without their head coach. He's back with them now. It's going to be fun to watch them when they host their own Christmas tournament. There's going to be some good teams in that. So that could be that. The Christmas tournament is the only time this year that we could see Fannin and Lumpkin girls play each other. So we're going to hope and pray that does happen.
Yeah, well, let's hope that happens. That'd be a blast.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, Lumpkin just gets it done all over the place. Dawson's probably the second team in that conference or in that region, and they beat them pretty handily. So fun team to watch. As far as their boys are concerned, I think they're just a guy or two away from taking that leap up to the next level. That will be a fun matchup coming up when Lumpkin boys and Fannin boys play in the Christmas tournament in Dahlonega. But Lumpkin boys got a big win over Riverside Military Academy. And then, unfortunately, they lost last night to a Gilmer team that's now 9-0. And we'll talk about Gilmer here in a second. Gilmer beat them 52-47. But if you're Lumpkin, you come away from that game thinking Gilmer, top team in that region, one of the best teams. Obviously, I think they're ranked 10th in the state. So that's not a bad loss. If there ever is such a thing as not a bad loss, that's one right there where they barely lost to a really good Gilmer Bobcats team. I think there's some highlights from that one on Max Preps as well if you want to go back and watch them.
I've got a different one pulled up real quick, I think, Jake, just because I wanted to be able to highlight. You mentioned how the Lumpkin boys beat Riverside Military Academy at the Gold City Shootout. I just wanted to share that because Jones Harris of Lumpkin, Jake, he had a night, and he had 31 against Riverside Military Academy.
Yeah, he played really good. They've got a freshman, Cal Faulkner, who plays really good, and he's complemented by Jones Harris, who's a senior, and they play really well together. They've got a lot of other really good players on that team as well. But those are their two main guys. So they're pretty fun to watch. And knowing that they've got a younger team, I mean, they've got I think Jones Harris, I mean, obviously it's going to be a big loss, but he's their only senior. So I think they're 1 year away from being a top contender in that region.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that notion as well. I definitely think with what they have coming back in the years to come, they could definitely be one to watch out for. And maybe, as the season goes on, maybe they even make a late run this year.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? But like we talked about, I mean, Jones Harris is the guy for the Lumpkin County Indians, and it's gonna be good for a freshman like Cal Faulkner. It's weird to see all these freshmen playing in the North Georgia area, but it's good for him to be able to look up to Jones Harris and kind of get that have Harris in that leadership role with Faulkner surely to be in that role in the years to come.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that notion whatsoever, Jake. I think that they've really got a chance to keep improving. But let's go to the one that you were talking about, and that was that the Gilmer game, right?
Yeah, the Gilmer game was a really good game. While you pull those up, though, let's go to break really quick, and we'll come back and see the highlights from Lumpkin County and Gilmer County. Gilmer County's still 9-0, still undefeated, so they've been really fun to watch this year. But let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the Endless Aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def? We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days, same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
It's an opportunity you can't miss. Days Chevrolet in Jasper is stepping up and paying top dollar for your trade-in. Any make, any model. Days wants it, and we're paying top dollar to get it. So, what'll you do with all that cash? Shop for your new Chevy at DaysChevroletJasper.com. New vehicles are arriving weekly, or shop from our great selection of pre-owned inventory.
At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the Endless Aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def? We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days, same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
It's an opportunity you can't miss. Days Chevrolet in Jasper is stepping up and paying top dollar for your trade-in. Any make, any model. Days wants it, and we're paying top dollar to get it. So, what'll you do with all that cash? Shop for your new Chevy at DaysChevroletJasper.com. New vehicles are arriving weekly, or shop from our great selection of pre-owned inventory. Don't delay. Come get cash for your vehicle today at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Days Chevrolet. Days gets it done.
Find new roads.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Caleb Tallman, Jake West back with you on the North Georgia Shootaround. We apologize, folks. We took a break there just real quick because we were having issues with our screen sharing and the highlights and such. But we got some of that fixed and played you most of the highlights we wanted you to see. But let's finish, Jake, going around last week's games before we get into this week's games a little bit. Before we have a lengthy interview at the end of our show that we're excited about that we'll talk about here in a minute. Looking at Pickens girls 6-2, out to a good start. Picked up 2 wins between shows. As we always talk, Thursday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Thursday, however you want to look at it. They beat Central 52-38 on Friday, beat Heritage by an odd score of 31-23 just last night. I'd love to hear more how that one, such a low-scoring girls game.
Yeah.
And then the boys team still struggling a little bit, but, they played a closer game, losing to Central just 60-48 on Friday, but then kind of took one on the nose to Heritage 56-31 last night.
Yeah, you mentioned that low-scoring game between Pickens. I think was it last night? That low-scoring game last night or Monday night?
Yes, that was Tuesday night, I think.
Yeah, that's something that's wild. I mean, Pickens was an Elite 8 team last year, and they're used to putting up quite a few points, and that was obviously kind of just a hiccup for them, but they still got it done, still came away with a win. So good for them. I mean, girls basketball in our area is really something to watch.
Yeah, North Georgia, West North Carolina. I don't know if there's a better region of the country that's got as many competitive teams at a state level that we do in our coverage areas right now, Jake. I mean, obviously, we're not asking to put our 1A teams with the 6A teams in Metro DC, but as for our level, our teams are very competitive. And I mean, it's a blessing for you and I just to get to be able to cover them as we've got a lot of good basketball going on this winter. And then last team, I know we mentioned Gilmer going into break. Boys still 9-0, beat White County 45-38 on Friday and beat Lumpkin last night 52-47 in a boys game that was probably a little closer than some expected. As Lumpkin's boys played a little better than we've seen them play. And, maybe not the best game we've seen Gilmer play, but they were able to pull out the win. I think that's a big thing in basketball especially is, you get to an end of a game and all of a sudden all it takes – in a 10-point ball game is someone to get an and one, someone to get hit coming down the court, you get a flagrant foul or a technical if a coach gets upset. Basketball is such a crazy sport. A 10-point game in 15 seconds can turn into a 4-point game as quick as it can turn into a 16-point game. So sometimes just when you're able to grind out those late wins, you get to the end of the night and you didn't play as well as you could, but you found a way to win. And I think that's the difference right now that we're seeing between some of our boys teams, especially, Jake, is we've got a couple right now. They're finding ways to win games late. And then we've got a couple, I don't want to say they're finding ways to lose late because we know other teams are executing well down the stretch. And I think that's kind of the separation.
Yeah, I'd agree. Let's get into some of these next week's games. Though, as Lumpkin is going to be taking on North Hall on Friday and then Flowery Branch on Monday. And then obviously they'll have a break in their schedule for Christmas. Those will be good games, especially on the boys' side. But keeping with the boys' side, let's go to the Gilmer schedule. This Friday, they've got Dawson, and that will be the last game they play. Gilmer boys or girls play until they play Creekview in their Christmas tournament. So that should be a good one. Dawson County boys, not really great, but the girls are an okay team. The boys are 1-8. But as far as girls are concerned, they're probably the second team in that region behind Lumpkin. So that should be a good one between the Gilmer girls and the Dawson girls. And I don't think, as far as Fannin is concerned, I don't think they play another game until their Christmas tournament.
You know, their boys and girls do not play again until the Christmas tournament. And you're starting to get to that time of the year. I always kind of hate it just because I'm a basketball junkie. It's like you feel like you finally get into that stretch run of the season where there's a game just about every night almost, except for sometimes Wednesdays and Sundays, obviously. And then you hit Christmas break, and it's like, okay, we're going to slow down again. There's like, just as you feel like you're getting into that group. And I know a lot of coaches feel the same way. A lot of coaches are having those optional shoot-arounds on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. Not that they're not giving their kids the appropriate time off, but it's like, you know, especially like we'll take Gilmer boys, for example. I mean, they're hot right now. Do you think they want to stop playing games with the streak they're on?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. So that's going to be especially hard for Fannin. At least Gilmer has one more game before Christmas break. But Pickens has 2 games before Christmas break. They play this Friday, and then they play Monday. North Murray this Friday, and then Monday they've got Ringgold, and then they play Tuesday, and they play Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I think their tournament must start before Christmas break, and they'll play the 21st, 22nd. Or the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 3 days in a row for Pickens. So that's going to be a grueling stretch. And then they'll play the 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Playing 2 tournaments, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's going to be a lot for the Dragons. But it's going to be fun basketball to watch, especially if you're a Dragons fan, get ready, buckle up, because you're going to be in the gym a lot coming up late. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's on one hand, yeah, your team might be tired by the end of that 6th game, but I guarantee you're going to find out a lot about your teams and your program after that 6-game stretch. You go 6-0, you're saying, wow. You go 0-6, you're saying, eh. And, you know, somewhere in between, there's going to be a lot of positives and maybe some negatives to take away, but you'll find out about the Pickens programs and maybe what their ceiling is after that tough, grueling stretch.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously not a lot more left to talk about because we've got teams that are taking a lot of breaks here before Christmas. But obviously we'll have a lot to talk about. Maybe not next week, but the week after that. So we're going to go to break, and then when we get back from break, you're going to hear an interview with the head coach of the Gilmer Wrestling program, Joshua Gobadpour. He's done a really good job there, been the head coach of Gilmer Wrestling for 5 years. He's just gonna take some time and highlight his program. I know this is a basketball show, but we also want to give some love. We told you in our pilot we were going to give some love to wrestling and whatever else we could find that was going on during the winter. So no better wrestling program really in our area than the Gilmer Wrestling program. So take some time out, and I encourage you to watch and listen to this interview. He's got a lot of nice things to say and neat things to say. Even if you're not a fan of wrestling, I would say after watching this interview, you'll become a fan of Gilmer Wrestling. So let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll play that interview.
At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the endless aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def. We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days, same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
It's an opportunity you can't miss. Days Chevrolet in Jasper is stepping up and paying top dollar for your trade-in. Any make, any model. Days wants it, and we're paying top dollar to get it. So, what'll you do with all that cash? Shop for your new Chevy at DaysChevroletJasper.com. New vehicles are arriving weekly, or shop from our great selection of pre-owned inventory. Don't delay. Come get cash for your vehicle today at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Days Chevrolet. Days gets it done.
Find new roads.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Welcome in, Jake West, Director, Team FY Sports, joined by head coach of the Gilmer Bobcats wrestling team, Josh Gobadpour. Coach, appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit down with us and talk about your program.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Coach, just as we get started here, tell us about your wrestling background and your how long you've been a coach at Gilmer and where you got started coaching.
I'm from North Georgia, so I graduated Lumpkin County High School back in 2006. Was able to wrestle there, and then wrestled in college out Dana College in Nebraska. As soon as I was done, it was always the plan to come back and start coaching. So was able to get in with the Lumpkin County wrestling program right after college, and then became the head middle school wrestling coach there for a few years, as well as a varsity assistant coach. And then as I met my wife and things changed a little bit, we moved down to LaGrange, Georgia. And I was assistant coach with LaGrange High for a year. And then I was the head wrestling coach at Galloway High School. And we were, we were starting out, we were building up the program, and we were getting it to a good place. And then this opportunity opened up. And then we were very blessed to be able to come back up to North Georgia and start, continuing the legacy that Gilmer Wrestling is. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So you wrestled. How'd you get into wrestling? I know it's kind of a odd thing to get into, especially I think in our area. It's growing, but it's still somebody has to go out of their way to get you into it.
Absolutely, and all credit goes to Daryl Elrott, who's my middle school wrestling coach. See, I played basketball and football and baseball and track and did a lot of different sports. And I think in 7th grade I had him in English class, and he just came up to me one day and said, "You're going to wrestle." And I think I was so thrown back and a little nervous by it. I said, "Oh, okay." And, when you're a little younger, you hit growth spurts. I was probably one of the taller people in my class in 6th grade. And then, I quit growing as far as vertically. So wrestling was probably a good pick for me after that. But he got me out in the wrestling. And he was actually, he's in the GHSA Wrestling, Hall of Fame. My high school wrestling coach is as well. So I had really good role models coming up and just fell in love with it and really love what the sport stands for. I mean, it's for everybody. If you're willing to work hard, then you will have success at some capacity. If you're really willing to go that extra mile, then you'll have a lot of success in it. So,
yeah, and it seems like you guys have had a lot of success as of late, and historically the Gilmer program has had a lot of success. I know you haven't been there for a really long time, but can you tell us just kind of what being around the program? And I know you've got some guys that have been around that program for a long time. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the Gilmer program as a whole and how historically good it has been.
Well, I mean, it's just Gilmer Wrestling is, renowned throughout the state. I think it's one thing when you're in the community and you've kind of when you've had a lot of success for so long, you kind of get used to that a little bit, and it's expected. But a lot of people don't see the hard work that goes into it in a day in, day out, 365-day year. So, but all over the state, when you're not a part of it, you really understand what that means a little bit more so and how respected it is. And this is my 5th year as the head coach here. And the goal is always to come in and to continue that legacy and continue that tradition. And I feel like we've managed to definitely keep it at a high level every year. We've been in the state finals every year. We've, won our region tournaments or area tournaments every year, traditional and dual. So we're trying to keep our wrestlers at a high level and those expectations of what they always have been. Coach Snyder was here, I believe, 22 years prior to that. And, they won 17 state titles. So that's a lot to live up to and a lot to work into. And everybody knew that going into it. When there's going to be a transition as far as especially that head coaching transition, where's the program going to go from here? And our goal was to continue to work hard and expect great things from our wrestlers. And I think a lot of that success, even from Coach Snyder's time to when I've been here, can be contributed to a total program effort from our youth coaches to our middle school coaches, especially, some legendary coaches that we had like Coach Walt Monroe and Coach Bo Dorsey and Coach Doug Haynes at the middle school level, who always send up wrestlers as freshmen prepared and ready to step into a varsity role if needed. So it's a total program effort, and we work top to bottom, and nobody's bigger than the program.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. Before we get into highlighting some of your individual wrestlers and some of the great performances we've seen this year, tell us about your staff. Who's on your staff? I know those guys, especially, don't really get a whole lot of love. So tell us, highlight some of those guys if you don't care.
So right now we probably have more coaches on staff than we ever have, which is a great thing. We've had a couple different years where we've had some turnover, but that's been for good things. Whenever coaches have an opportunity to improve their position, like we had 2 years ago, we had a couple coaches were able to better their positions and get head coaching jobs and do those things. You have to support them, and if that's their goal, you want people to be goal-oriented and want to improve their situation. And then that way they're always going to be working hard. So the last 2 years we've had the same staff. So right now, as far as our certified assistant coaches, we have Stacy Galloway, who's been with me for 2 years. We have DJ Underwood, who's been with us for 2 years. Brent Berry, who's been with me the longest. He's been with me all 5 years, and he was a youth coach before he stepped into working with the high school. So it was a transition at first, but he's been awesome to have. And then you have somebody that's been a part of that youth and been a part of those kids' life from an early level, and they've kind of seen things and they can help bounce those ideas off of and things like that. We have Dan Pujak, who is a state finalist for Gilmer a few years back, and is just a tough young guy who's just really, really committed. And right now also we have Doug Haynes, who's come back, and he's been with the middle school. He was with the middle school for 12 years, and he's, was a coach for 40 years. He's from Indiana, and he just brings a wealth of knowledge and toughness into the room. And he's coached a lot of these seniors and juniors when they were in middle school as well. So it's great to have him on board as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the best things about a program, you mentioned some of those guys that had wrestled for Gilmer and were alumni and come back. I think that's what keeps a program strong, is you keep just recycling through and getting guys back. And just speaking of those guys, tell us about your team. Yeah, I think you had a really good weekend last weekend or 2 weeks ago in the last tournament you guys were in.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a really good season so far. We've been dual heavy as far as our schedule right now, just to make sure we get guaranteed matches and make sure we're competing. We've really tried to, we're trying to hit the 50 to 60 to 65 mark as far as total varsity matches for individuals at the end. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to have somewhere between 45 and 52 duels. It just depends on what tournaments. Maybe you get 4, maybe you get 3 here. And then trying to hit a certain match number there, not too much but not too little, and also upping our JV tournaments and matches, and then our girls tournaments as well, because we have a great girls team on top of our normal guys varsity squad. So right now we're 25 matches in as far as duels. We've won 3 tournaments. So we won the Alexander duels, and we beat some great competition there, including Rockmart, who's probably our direct competition for a state duels title this year. So that was a great one for us. We went into the Etowah duels, and we were able to win that one. We won the North Murray duels. We placed fourth in the Allatoona duels. We only had one loss, but because it was in our pool, we weren't able to wrestle any higher than fourth place. And then this past weekend was probably our toughest competition going into the Cleveland duels, which is Cleveland, Tennessee, where, you have Southeast powerhouses, Cleveland, Father Ryan, Woodland, Cartersville, Summit, Tennessee. Bradley Central. it's a who's who of wrestling in this area. So we were able to come back with a fourth place finish there. We had two losses, one to Cleveland, who's very, very good, and one to Father Ryan, who's also just a powerhouse in this area. So a lot of things to learn from in that, and that's why we went. We need to see that competition. We need to see what we need to work on, because, it's better for us to see that now and lose now than lose later when it really, really counts.
Yeah, very true. Tell us about some of the individual performances you had over the past couple of weeks. I know you've got some guys that are really shining, and girls that are really shining out on the mat. So if you don't care, just go through some of your wrestlers and highlight what they do.
Well, fortunately, we have a lot of really tough individuals right now. When we're set weight class wise and we're still making a couple changes, we're going to be really, really tough. And some of the people that are really standing out, our 106 pounder, Juan Rafael, who this is his, first year getting to start. He's been behind a state placer, then he was behind a state champion, and then it's finally his opportunity, and he's making the most of it. He had a couple losses this past weekend to some really tough kids, but those were his first losses of the season, and he's really stepping into his own, and we expect big things out of him. Carson Ferris at 113, he's was undefeated last year as a freshman in one state. He's still undefeated right now, and he's 25-0, and he's just they don't really make him like Carson Ferris very often. He's a very special young man. He's humble. He outworks everybody in the room, or does his best to on a daily basis. And he's all about the team. So, he's somebody that we're looking at having a lot of success again this year. At 120, we have Arturo Gonzalez, who's a returning state finalist, and he's a captain for us, and so is Carson Ferris. And he's working extremely hard. So, you can see just they stack up in a row when you have good wrestlers and they work with each other and they continue to wrestle each other. They're grouped together a lot of times, and we have a lot of those groupings on the team. And he's wrestled really well. At 126, Bragan Berry has had some great tournaments and has worked really hard, and he's a sophomore, and he'll probably be our 126. Some other people that have really stood out here lately, at 170, Daniel Ronosa, who's a senior. He was in the blood round last year, and he's done an exceptional job, really stepping into his senior role, being a leader on the team, and just really put in the work in the offseason. Came back physically just a lot different. Diego Acento, state finalist for us from last year, really stepped up. We got some guys banged up, a little injured right now, but as far as what we've seen throughout the majority of the season, those guys are doing exceptional. Owen Moss at 195 right now was a state placer for us last year, is really working hard. He's trying to place even higher than he was before. Dylan Galloway is a returning state finalist, and he's a couple-time placer, and he's trying to break through that hump and get on top of the podium. And then Tony Leia, who is our heavyweight, who was a state qualifier last year, and he is just night and day difference from where he was last year. He's lost one match on the year, and that was to Cleveland's Ashton Davis, who signed with Cornell to wrestle D1. So a pretty tough kid. He's 24-1 on the season, and he has really shown so much growth and maturity from last year to this year. So, we could probably talk about every kid to some capacity because we've had that good of a start to the season. But those are some highlights of some kids that are really wrestling well and doing some big things right now.
Going forward this year, what's up next on the schedule for you guys? I know you're probably not even halfway through what you want to do, but what's some of the big tournaments coming up next that we need to keep our eye out for?
Well, tomorrow we got to be strapped up and ready. We have our senior night, and we have Cass High School, which they're ranked either number 2 or number 3 in 5A, and 5A is a very deep class this year in wrestling. So they're coming to us tomorrow. We got Northwest Whitfield coming as well, and then Adairsville, who's I would say is probably number 4 in 3A. So we have, after this weekend as tough as it was physically and mentally, we've kind of got hit with the sick bug a little bit. So we've got some guys that are going to be out, and we're going to have some other people step up to make those matches really be competitive. So we're probably going to be down a few guys, but then we're going to that also gives an opportunity for some younger guys or some backups to step up and get their opportunity to shine. So that's just tomorrow, and then next tournament after that will be Friday and Saturday. We're going to Cahowa Creek, and that we will get 8 matches in 2 days. So we'll get 4 on Friday, we'll get 4 on Saturday. So a tough stretch of the schedule it was last week and this week combined. We're really going to see where our toughness is and how well we can kind of get through some adversity, because we know we're going to be faced with it at some point, wrestling that many matches. And there'll be some really good teams there. I know Wilson Central from Tennessee will be there, and they were second in their class last year. Tryon, who's a perennial powerhouse, and even though they're single A, they can beat just about anybody out there. So a lot of respect goes to them. And Bob Jones from Alabama. So a lot of Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia schools at that tournament. And then that'll kind of lead us into, we'll have a try match that following Tuesday. And then we'll kind of take a couple of days off, give them some time to rest and get their bodies right, get adapted. We'll get the 2-pound weight allowance, and then we'll have the Bobcat duels here at Gilmer on the 30th of December. And then after that, it's postseason. So it's area, sectional, state for duels, and then the same thing for traditional.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like I interviewed the Robbinsville high school wrestling coach over in Western North Carolina earlier last week, and you wrestling coaches really put your kids through the ringer.
Well, it's one thing about it is, you just want to be battle tested. We could make a schedule, and I've told our kids this, we can make a schedule, and I could purposely go out there and find certain tournaments or certain matchups and things, and we could be undefeated going into state. But if we're not seeing the competition we need to, and we're not getting better individually and finding, sometimes you have to find the adversity. If you don't have it, you got to make it. And if we don't do that, then maybe we're not ready when the time comes. So I would rather us go through a tough stretch and make sure that we're battle tested. We've seen enough. We're physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to compete at a high level. So when we do go to state, they're like, well, we've been to 3 other tournaments that are tougher than this. And that's kind of the mentality. We want it to be harder during the regular season than it is in the postseason. That way the lights aren't as bright. It's the same mat we're always wrestling on. We're used to it. And it's just another day for us. And then that way we're not psyching ourselves out, and we're ready to go. So it is tough. It's tough for our coaches. There's been nights where, they're getting back home at 1:00 in the morning, and they're waking up to be back in the school at 4:30 we got to leave out and be, in Tennessee or somewhere else. So it is tough, and luckily, once we get through this Christmas stretch, then it goes back down a notch. We have more practice time to get ready for whatever tournament or matchup that we have. The weight won't be as difficult, and we can really focus and be healthy going into whatever matches we have.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said earlier. You'd rather your kids figure it out now, lose now, than lose when it comes down to time. But that's awesome. I'm glad to see the program still heading in the same direction it was. I know it's not it's not as big as football in this area. Wrestling's not, but for some schools and for some people, I mean, that's 100% it. That's the reason that they grow up and they want to get on that purple mat and roll around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome to see that tradition carried on. And like you mentioned earlier, the younger youth programs that you guys have is awesome. And it's awesome to see just the sport get promoted in a way to where it's fun and kids want to get out there. I mean, you've created especially this year, created a schedule where kids do know, like, if they're going to go out there and their goal is to make it to the next level, then they're wrestling guys that are already committed to play to wrestle at the next level. So it's awesome to see.
Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, it just goes back to, we're just trying to give them opportunities, and it's been every year, but this year it's really, our wrestlers have stepped up because we can provide all the opportunities we can. But if they don't show up, it doesn't matter. And this year they've really shown up in droves. We had a spring, basically a season to get ready for the summer where we get 3 weeks in the summer. It used to be 4 weeks before the extra dead week that they've added in with GHSA. But, we went to Disney duels this summer and we saw some great competition. And then we've, practiced and we go to tournaments. And then we had our preseason start up for any of those that aren't in another sport. We're giving them time in the weight room. We're giving them time to condition. We're giving them, we're trying to set up USA wrestling for them to get more mat time. And we had upwards of 40-something wrestlers showing up to preseason. And that's girls and guys, but that's exceptional, to have that many committed and bought in. And especially when it's mostly your heavy hitters, that are showing up and wanting to get better. And, right now at our middle school, Coach Glanton, who's down there, who's our head wrestling coach there, I mean, he has about 70 kids out. We had about 65 come out at the high school level. So our numbers are great. Our youth is growing again. We have a lot of help there. So, just providing opportunities and just, trying to get the kids out. And then also, telling them it's going to be hard. There's going to be some setbacks. You're not going to win right away. You could be a phenomenal athlete. Maybe it doesn't transition right away. And then you're going to have to mentally be able to deal with that. And like you said, some people, they just want to wrestle and they grow up and maybe their parents were into it. Maybe they had brothers or cousins or whoever. And that's how it kind of gets into you. Somebody has to go out and find you for wrestling to a certain extent. It's not something that, as heavily promoted as football or something because, this is the South and football is king as far as that goes. But I do think there's a lot of beneficial things, for both in that regard. But, our numbers are great right now. It's probably the best they've ever been as far as since I've been here at least. And we're just going to continue to grow that and try to develop our youth because at the end of the day, we're one big program. And as quickly as, or as long as it's taken to build up this program, if you don't nurture it and continue to feed it and do the right things, it can be gone very quickly. So we just got to continue to make it a priority and continue to work at it every day and challenge ourselves, to make tough schedules and do tough things because that's going to help get us where we need to be.
Oh, that's awesome, Coach. Well, I want to appreciate you taking time out of your day, sitting down and talking with us and going through an in-depth look into your program. We are looking forward to seeing what you guys are able to accomplish this year. It's been fun to follow along thus far, and I know like you said, you're really getting into the meat of it right now. And then as soon as after Christmas, you really hit the ground running in postseason. So we're really excited to keep up with that and can't wait to see what you guys are able to do this year.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time with this.
Yeah, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.